Hello, this is Congressman Brad Sherman, live from Washington, D.C. We're about to start another one of our telephone town hall meetings. First, a little logistics. You can write down the following phone number, and you should. 855-920-0548. If we get disconnected for any reason, just dial that number. You'll be reconnected to this town hall. Once again, that number is 855-920-0548. Our next telephone town hall will be at 7 p.m. on September 7th. That's Thursday, September 7th. And you can RSVP for that town hall by going to bradsherman.house.gov. And that'll give you a chance to submit a written question in advance. For those who are unfamiliar with these telephone town halls, this is a giant conference call. We'll have thousands of people involved. I will take questions from the floor. And in addition, a few people have sent in written questions, and I'll answer a few of those as well. We'll also be doing a survey so that you can express your opinion on a variety of public policy issues just by pushing the keypad on your phone. Now, if you want to be connected to my fine staff, you dial *3. You can either talk to them about a personal issue, or most people who dial *3 will want to be put in the queue and ask a question that will be heard by thousands across our congressional district. So once again, if you want to be connected to us, you dial *3. As I said, we have usually 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people participate, and you will be able to register your views through our survey, and some of you will be able to ask a question that will be heard by the whole Valley and much of the West Side. Now, people are dialing in now, so I'll be a little bit repetitive for those who join us 5 minutes into our town hall. For those of you who live in the West and South San Fernando Valley, you've been getting these calls for years. At the beginning of this year, parts of the West Side were added to our district, including Brentwood and the Palisades. And so if you're from those areas, this is, I believe, only the second time we've called you. We'll be continuing until about 8:10 p.m., so that'll give us an hour and 10 minutes. The structure of the United States government is complex. It was designed by people who feared concentrated government power. And so to really talk about all the issues, I try to involve people from state and local government as well. At the bottom of the hour, we'll have a guest appearance from Assemblywoman Jacqui Irwin, who represents pretty much all the parts of the West Side that I represent, and then has most of her district in Ventura County. Now I want to put in a pitch for our constituent service team. It's located in America's best named city, Sherman Oaks, and our phone number there is 818-501-9200. We have on the line two of the constituent service workers there, John Alford and Lisa Montano, and let me put in a pitch for their work. Imagine a federal government agency makes a mistake. It could happen. It could affect you. Could be a visa from someone abroad who is trying to visit. Could be a Social Security benefit. Could be the IRS. You have a problem with a federal agency, you give us a call at 818-501-9200. Talk to Lisa. She will work very hard. She'll solve your problem. And then I, Brad Sherman, will take the credit. I think it's an outstanding system. I also wanted to put in a pitch for getting your passport renewed. If you do it a year before it's going to expire, 9 months before it's going to expire, you just go online and get it done. It takes months, but at least your passport still has 9 months to go on it. Some of you who watch a lot of C-SPAN have seen me criticize Secretary Blinken for not getting the State Department to really focus on this, and so a lot of people you're a month or two before you're going to leave, and you can't renew your passport because the system is so slow. You have a passport emergency, give us a call at 818-501-9200. And I also want to mention the military academies, West Point, Annapolis, the Air Force Academy. If you know a young person interested in attending, first, thank them for their interest in serving our country. And second, have them contact John Alford at our Sherman Oaks office in October of their senior year in high school. To get into the military academies, you have to have not only a willingness to serve our country and expose yourself to danger, you also need an outstanding high school record, same kind of record that would get you into UCLA or another selective university. And you also need to be appointed by your member of Congress. That would be me, and that's why we need to hear from you in October of your senior year of high school. For those of you who have just joined us, this is Congressman Brad Sherman. This is our telephone town hall, and I will soon be taking questions from those who are listening. We have well over 3,000 people on the line now, and a few more will be joining us. And if you dial *3, you'll be put in queue to ask a question that will be heard by thousands of people. If you're going to visit Washington, D.C., give us a call just as soon as you know the dates you're going to be here, and talk to Melissa, talk to Katie. The phone number here in Washington, 202-225-5911. The more advance notice you give us, the better tours we'll set you up with. And a few basic points for me to cover. If you don't believe global warming is real, then you haven't gone outside in the San Fernando Valley in the last week. I have, for many years, co-sponsored the Green New Deal and supported all the major efforts here for us to get a handle on global warming. We dealt, since our last town hall, with the debt limit. That is a problem that won't reemerge until early 2025. The Republicans pretty much just negotiated for spending limits, which is peculiar because starting on October 1, every dollar the federal government spends will be pursuant to a bill that has to pass the House, and nothing passes the House that Kevin McCarthy doesn't want to pass the House. I know that some of you have this image that, well, we have the Democrats, and if just 5 Republicans are for it, then we pass the bill. The Democrats plus 5 Republican votes. The way it works in the House is the Speaker determines what bills are even considered. And if Speaker McCarthy were to bring a bill for consideration that had overwhelming Democratic support, but only the support of 5 or 10 Republicans, there would be a rebellion in his caucus, and he might no longer be Speaker. So McCarthy only brings bills up for consideration that have the support of usually a large majority, but at least a very substantial number of Republicans. We dealt with FAA reauthorization just this week. I finished it this morning. And an awful lot of people in the Valley are concerned about airport noise. And I have at least one of the written questions that was submitted in advance that I will answer dealing with airport noise. But we did make at least some progress in this bill toward at least elevating the importance of airport noise. So our guest speaker will join us at the bottom of the hour. You dial *3 in order to be put in the queue. I'm particularly interested in getting questions on foreign policy, just because we didn't have many, if any, in our last telephone town hall. And I am the number 2 Democrat on the Foreign Affairs Committee. Just yesterday, I was a part of a small ceremonial group to escort President Herzog of Israel to the podium where He addressed a joint session of Congress in honor of the 75th anniversary of Israel's independence. I also am the number 3 Democrat on the Financial Services Committee that deals with our economic policy, securities, crypto, banking, and I'll be mentioning ESG, which is one of the issues that's come up before us, particularly this month. So, Don, who's our first questioner?
Yeah, Congressman, we have Cara from Encino who has a question about bipartisanship. Cara, you're on now.
Hi.
Hello, Cara.
Hi, Representative. It's so nice to meet you. I heard you talk at the Encino Little League, so that was a real nice introduction to you. I have a question tonight about the political divide. Seeing how a healthy democracy relies on everyday citizens to live, to work, and to serve alongside people who don't believe that they believe differently than they do, and how loneliness and isolation has reached such a point that the Surgeon General himself is talking about it, and that political polarization and division has reached a point that there are some people who say that it's the number one threat to our national security. My question is, what actionable plans do you have to help heal the political divide, and do any of those plans include supporting the Building Civic Bridges Act that was written by Representative Kilmer and Representative Barr?
I'm not that familiar with that particular proposal, and a lot of people think Congress is divided. What's the matter with Congress? We are literally the House of Representatives, and we represent a country that's divided. And if you're in the Valley or on the West Side, and you live your whole life there, you don't see how divided it is, because there's a certain range of opinion and a certain midpoint on issues in the 32nd Congressional District. I spend my time with literally representatives, very good politicians from every part of this country. And if you look at the level of division and the range of opinion, not from Ventura Boulevard to Wilshire, but from Los Angeles to Oklahoma City to rural Montana, you end up with a divided country. I think that the fact that we have that we have single-member districts, a two-party system, makes it harder for us to deal with that. European countries that have a parliamentary democracy, people in the middle have a middle party to vote for, whereas with a two-party system, you first have to win the left-wing party or the right-wing party in order to proceed. And another problem that we have is a news media. During the Vietnam War, we had real differences of opinion, but we had a news media that told us the facts. And what Walter Cronkite told us, okay, that's the facts. Now let's have different opinions about those facts. We now have you could switch back and forth between Fox and MSNBC, and they may not even be talking about the same stories, but if they are, it's from an entirely different slant. And then your phone is programmed to share with you only the stories you like and agree with and engage in. And the news media has figured out that giving you facts is less profitable than giving you opinion. If you spend a lot of money as a newspaper or as a television network to put a bureau in Nairobi, Kenya, and you're going to cover what's happening in Kenya and what's happening to the price of wheat in East Africa as a result of the new Russian blockade of the Ukrainian exports. First, that doesn't get your ratings, and second, it costs a lot of money to have fact gatherers all over the world. On the other hand, you can just hire somebody with a good vocabulary who can pontificate for an hour, and that really draws in the viewers and costs you much less. So there's sources of the problem and a description of how the problem is even bigger than you'd realize in the valley. I do think that we need voters who are saying not what have you done so that our side will win, but what have you done to keep the system going and to make sure we adhere to the rules of the road. And I think as we see the dangers of just how divided we are, we may get a resurgence of this. But in talking to people, particularly those who are politically active, the overwhelming sentiment is, how can we win? And I'm often told, go work with Republicans, but then I ask people more, and it's like, go get the Republicans to agree with us. Work in a bipartisan way to get a nationwide bill that institutionalizes Roe v. Wade and protects abortion rights. It's very hard to convince Republicans to vote for such a bill. So I wish I could tell you, and we do have the Problem Solvers Caucus. I work on a lot of bipartisan legislation. The most important thing I've done in Congress was the LIBOR bill that was completely bipartisan. I guess one ray of hope is there's a lot of work being done in Washington that is bipartisan, like the FAA reauthorization bill that we passed today, that won't be on the front page of your newspaper precisely because it's bipartisan. And the newspaper has figured out that World Wrestling Federation cage matches will generate more viewers than a discussion of air transportation policy in which both sides agree, or at least the divisions are not starkly partisan. I wish I had a shorter answer and a clearer answer for you, but let's move on to the next question.
Okay, Congressman, we have a call from Evan who has a question about the Sepulveda Pass.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, you are on now.
America's most congested roadway. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting this telephone town hall, Mr. Sherman. My name is Evan Curran. I'm a UCLA student. I'm also a representative on the Undergraduate Student Association Council, which is UCLA's undergraduate student association student government. As you know, we have over 2,500 students and 7,500 staff who commute daily from your district to campus. Despite your acknowledgement of the climate change and the climate crisis, students such as myself are concerned about your commitment to green transportation. In 2021, transportation was the single largest sector for carbon emissions in California. The greatest way to combat these emissions is with high-quality rapid transportation. With that in mind, and the knowledge that the UCLA station would be the single highest non-transfer ridership station in the entire metro system, would you support a direct connection to UCLA to help with the mobility of all those thousands of people who are commuting down the Sepulveda Pass daily? Thank you very much.
I've been fighting for rail through the Sepulveda Pass since last century. I'm absolutely dedicated to it. There are two rival plans. One involves a monorail along the 405 freeway, the other a subway, if eventually the MTA, the community unites behind either of those two plans, or for any reason only one of them whichever one the MTA wants to build, I'm going to try to get all the federal funding for it I can. Now, UCLA strongly believes in a subway. The subway is considerably more expensive, and I'm perfectly willing to see the federal government spend the money, but if the money isn't made available next decade, if we're in a situation where we don't get rail for many decades because we're still waiting for the money, I've been waiting for the money since 1996. So cost is a factor because cost equates to how soon we're going to be able to build this. Second, if the choice is between a monorail that only gets as far south as Westwood, or as a subway that only gets as far south as Westwood, or for the same price you can build a monorail all the way to LAX, we're going to have to analyze that either way. We did a question on this telephone town hall, I think it was in the last one, where the overwhelming vote was in favor of build something that gets as far south as LAX. I have been pounding on the MTA to try to give us some cost numbers. What can we get done? What can we afford to do? How soon will it be built? And they keep refusing. And then they do studies as to what people want without telling them how much it's going to cost, how long it'll take to get from this point to that point, what the fares are going to be, when it'll be built, and they do that so that they can get whatever answer they want and say that's the community voice. I recognize that UCLA would be an excellent stop. The subway is a much better system for getting to UCLA. The monorail would require people to get on a connector tunnel train people mover from southwest Westwood to campus, and from a UCLA perspective, that's the better choice. But when does it get built? How far south does it go? These are relevant questions too. And as a Bruin, I wish I could tell you that I'm for whatever UCLA wants. There are two sides to this, and we don't have any facts. They keep promising them to us. Also, MTA is now claiming that they don't need to have any parking spots in Sherman Oaks. That nobody is going to want to drive to the rail and get on it and go south. And these people have never been to the Valley, apparently, because that is precisely what Valley people want to do. So many of them, at least, probably most. So the MTA is a problem. As part of your written question there, you questioned my dedication to having rail through the Sepulveda Pass, and I'll just say that I've been fighting for it and fighting hard since 1996. And we were, it's to have my dedication to it questioned just because I haven't embraced option A over option B, and I haven't said it's got to be a subway. I don't like a monorail. It doesn't matter whether it gets to LAX. It just matters whether it gets to UCLA. I think that's a little unfair, more than a little unfair. We've got to see from the MTA what are the costs, what are the options, how quickly they can build it. I'm getting a note here from my staff that I don't understand. Okay, let's go on to, we're going to do our first survey question. This is a survey question that we ask in all of our town halls and pollsters ask it in almost every poll they do on public policy. Do you approve or disapprove of President Biden's performance in office? 1, if you approve of Biden. 2, if you disapprove. And 3, if you're unsure. 1 for approve, 2 disapprove of Biden, 3 unsure. Not only will I announce the results soon, I'll compare them to the results from our most recent town hall. Let's go on to the next question.
Okay, Congressman, we have a call from Drew regarding online media and products being sold online. Drew, you're on.
Afternoon, Congressman. Thank you for taking my question. My question deals with the advertisements that we see on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and the products that are sold on those advertisements. There's a lot of people getting scammed. I've been scammed a couple of times, know what to look for now, but my parents have, everybody I know, and the recourse to try to get our money back is very hard to get your money back. And I want to know, is there any sort of legislation, whether it's being already put through or thought about, that could put the accountability on the actual social media site like Facebook or Instagram to monitor who they're putting on there for advertising?
I think that that would that is interesting. There's much more talk about holding them accountable for the content of whoever's tweeting or whatever, and defamation, libel, misinformation there. The advertising is a little different because they're getting paid for that. And I don't know of a proposal that would change existing law. Can you be more specific as to what kind of scams you're concerned about? Is this a matter that it's the product is actually delivered and it says it'll perform this way and it doesn't quite perform that way, or the product isn't delivered at all, or what are the kinds of scams?
Congressman, the caller is off, but it is products not being delivered, but also products that aren't as
I think he raises an interesting issue. I haven't seen a bill to hold them accountable. I don't know exactly. I mean, that would obviously take an awful lot of work on to be done by those who are accepting advertising. It's not. Obviously, if the publisher knows that it's a scam, they are definitely responsible. I haven't seen such a principle with newspapers, and I think that the tendency would be to hold all advertisers, whether they be the new social media or the traditional print media or the broadcast media, to the same standards. But that sounds like we should certainly review whatever proposals are out there on this, and we're going to do that tomorrow. Let's go on to the next question, and then we're going to hear from our guest speaker.
Okay, Congressman, here's a question about foreign policy regarding Ukraine. It's Miles from Brentwood. Miles, you're on now.
Thank you. Hi, Congressman. Thank you for having this. You asked for some foreign policy questions, so I'm a constituent who is providing constituent service to his congressman. How about that?
Thank you.
No, but this is something that concerns me. We read in the media and see on the news that there's a significant number of Republicans who are against aid or really helping Ukraine in a significant way. And because you serve on that policy and you're dealing with Republican congressmen in the House, I wanted your perspective. How big, how significant is this part of the Republican Party?
There's always been an isolationist wing in the Republican Party. I saw a biography of Eisenhower, who decided to run for president in part because Taft, the other leading Republican for the 1952 nomination, was somewhat was an isolationist in his view, and the isolationist wing, Ron Paul have been very strong on that. It declined substantially with 9/11 because the argument just before that was, well, if we leave the extremists in the Middle East alone, they'll leave us alone, and that was rejected as a result of 9/11. It is making a comeback. I think what underpins the rhetoric now is a belief, well, this is only about the Donbass region of Ukraine. And yeah, I've never been to the Donbass region of Ukraine. I don't know if my life, much of that region is being occupied by Russia now. That hasn't affected my life. But what ignores is if Putin can take a region of Ukraine, and he can do it easily, and there's no U.S. aid. Without U.S. aid, he would have prevailed and prevailed relatively easily. Then he's going to take the next piece. And then the next piece after that is the Baltic states, for example, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and that's NATO territory. So you cannot have a situation where Putin feels he can just march in and take easily whatever happens to be on his doorstep. The vote on the Republican side for helping Ukraine, I think it was about a quarter of the Republicans who voted not to help Ukraine. That is alarming and disappointing, but still, three-quarters were with us. The vast majority of Democrats were with us on that. And I do think we have to manage what we do in Ukraine carefully. We do have to keep American forces out of the war, keep it from leading to a Russia versus U.S. battle, and God forbid a nuclear battle. But I think the policy that Biden has followed is good. And even though I say it's good, I'm not confident that Ukraine will be able to take back much of the territory that they lost last year. The Russian military was, I think, disappointing to themselves on their ability to go on the attack, but they're much stronger on the defense. So thank you for that question. We have the results from our first call-in question, and this time it's 75% approve of Biden, 16% disapprove, 9% unsure, and that compares to the nearly identical from our May town hall, 71% approving, 18% disapproving, and 11% unsure. We're going to do another survey question, and this is going to be a long one, and then we're going to hear from Assemblywoman Jacqui Irwin. Los Angeles is going to host the Olympics in 2028. We last hosted the Olympics back in 1984, and there was at that time substantial opposition to having any of the sporting events take place in the valley, and particularly in the Sepulveda Basin. Now, looking ahead to 2028, there's discussion of hosting archery or perhaps cricket, maybe some other sport in the Sepulveda Basin. On the one hand, this is the Olympics. It might be exciting. On the other hand, a big event like this comes with some disruption and some traffic. So the question is, do you support having Olympic sporting competition in the San Fernando Valley? One, if you want to see some sports in the Sepulveda Basin. Two, if you oppose having the sporting events in the Sepulveda Basin. And three, if you're unsure. Okay, and now I get to introduce Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin, who represents the 42nd District, including the same areas that I represent on the west side. She is the chair of the Revenue and Tax Committee up in Sacramento, and that harkens back to my first public office for 6 years. I was chair of the Board of Equalization, which was the state's elected tax commission at that time. So I worked with the Revenue and Tax Committee very closely back then, and I'm pleased that someone as capable as Jacqui Irwin serves as chair of it now. She was an All-American swimmer, competing in national championships. She's the mother of 3 adult children, and she and her husband live in Thousand Oaks. Let's hear from Jacqui Irwin what's happening in Sacramento.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I want to make sure that you can hear me clearly, Congressman Sherman.
Do. You are very clear.
Well, okay, great. And it is a pleasure to be able to meet with all your constituents, and I think it is really great that you do these town halls. Thank you so much for having me on. As you mentioned, I represent East Ventura County and Calabasas, Agoura, Hidden Hills, then Malibu, and then the communities in West LA, including Brentwood, Pacific Palisades, and Bel Air. And representing this region in the legislature is a great honor and motivates me to work hard every day on your behalf. Just as with the Congressman's staff, my district staff is happy to assist our constituents in connecting with state agencies or programs like the DMV. And over the past few years, especially with COVID, we have assisted thousands of people with their unemployment, disability, and paid family leave claims, working to ensure that community members have access to the benefits they've earned. This weekend, this coming up weekend, our district office will be holding 2 exciting events for constituents in the region. Tomorrow, we will have a press conference at Deer Creek in Malibu surrounding the preservation of this critical open space after we were able to secure $10 million in state funding. And on Saturday, we will be hosting one of our sidewalk sessions in Agora Hills, where I'll meet with constituents and hear about the issues affecting our community. You can visit my website to find the schedule for other sidewalk sessions in your community. And this year I've authored a number of bills. I just want to quickly highlight 3 of them that might be of interest. AB 660 will help combat food waste by standardizing food labels so that consumers no longer have to ask themselves if food is actually still good when, for instance, the sell-by date is passed. We would be the first in the nation to do that. We also have a bill to prevent cannabis companies from marketing their products to children, and a bill to ensure that electric vehicle charging stations are robust and user-friendly in order to ease our transition to a zero-carbon economy. As always, if we can be assistance, or if you have a great idea for a bill, please, or even a good idea for a bill, please don't hesitate to contact us. Our office number is 805-370-0542. And again, it is an honor to represent the 42nd District in Sacramento. And I appreciate the opportunity to bring you an update on our work.
Jacqui, if people have a problem with a state government agency, what's the phone number they should call?
Oh, yes, it's 805-370-0542, or they can go to our website also.
And that website is?
That I think you have to Google and see the
Google Assemblywoman Jacqui Irwin.
Exactly. I don't have that one. I don't have that one memorized. But yes, just Google Assemblymember Jacqui Irwin, and you'll be able to contact us.
Fantastic. And I should point out our phone number, which I gave a couple times before, is 818-501-9200. For tours of Washington, 202-225-5911. And the website for all of this on both coasts is bradsherman.house.gov. People ask why House? That's because this is the House of Representatives. So bradsherman.house.gov. Let's take another question from the floor, and then I'm going to respond to one of our written questions.
All right, Congressman, we have a question from Shannon regarding the strike. Shannon, you're on now.
Oh, and I should pay Jacqui, thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for having these town halls. It's really, really helpful. In 2020, when COVID hit, film crews were out of work, but the government stepped up and gave all unemployed people an additional money through EDD to cover rent, mortgage, and stuff. Many of us are still trying to bounce back from that time, which wasn't long ago. So my question is, what measures are being taken now for film and television crew members who are out of work because of the writers and actors strike?
We took extraordinary action during COVID. Some would say that we spent too much and that caused some degree of inflation. Others would say that the inflation was due not to excessive demand but to bottlenecks in the supply chain. But it's very clear that we can't keep the COVID policies going after the COVID because if you do spend too much, you do get inflation, and whether we spent more than we should have during COVID, we know there is a limit. And so, yes, this strike is not only unemployment for those who are on strike, but a whole industry, and it dramatically affects us. The standard answer is that we have unemployment insurance, and that is an inadequate benefit, but that is the benefit that's provided when people are out of work. And I know that the union is providing some degree of strike benefits, but there are a lot of people who are out of work or who are not on strike. But we are whether it is this entertainment strike or 100 other things that cause people to become unemployed. We have chiefly the unemployment insurance, and then if you get in tougher shape, we have the SNAP program, Section 8, a host of programs designed for those who become needy. We'll have the answers to the last survey question. Okay. Olympic competition in the Valley, 65% support, 19% oppose, 16% unsure. This tells me that the Valley has changed since the 1980s, as I think we all know it has. Let me take a question from our written questions. This is from Michael Barth, and the question is, I'm writing to express my deep concern regarding the use and implementation of artificial intelligence in our society and advocate for the urgent need of new laws and regulations to deal with potential risks. I couldn't agree more, and there are two aspects of this. Right now, AI is a tool. Someday it may become a creature. And I've been focused, as a tool, we've dealt with this before. And new systems for getting things done, new tools, ever since fire, humankind has benefited and suffered from new tools in the hands of good and bad people. I used to practice law and accounting, and we went from Selectric typewriters to word processing, and that made things, it was just a tremendous amount of work done in the era of carbon paper that isn't done now, and yet we haven't seen, the industry adapts, higher standards are set. Today's documents are beautiful compared to the ones in the 1970s, and I suspect that the new tools will cause us to have new levels of production rather than unemployment, and yet at the same time, we've got to worry about the effect of employment and make sure that if new jobs that workers are protected and that we create as many new jobs as we lose old jobs. But I suspect that what we're going to get is better products. AI is not that dissimilar to the internet research techniques that we've all used over the last 20 years. And I expect more from my staff now than I did 20 years ago because they're using advanced research techniques that weren't available then. The other part of this is looking 20, 30, 50, even 50 years out. When does AI become a creature? And I have been speaking about this for over 20 years. My staff has told me that I would be considered crazy, and my focus now is that when we spend money to develop new computing power, that we spend a portion of that, maybe 10%, on trying to make sure that artificial intelligence is not self-aware, ambitious, volitional, having a survival instinct, having a desire to affect and control the environment, to make sure it's not a creature, it's only a tool. Another part of this that is not discussed along with artificial intelligence, but is really poses the same risks, is genetic engineering. The genetic engineers are behind the computer engineers on this, but they too are developing techniques that will give us a new higher level of intelligence if unrestricted. And if there's a mammal with two 50-pound brains, it'll probably beat my grandkids on the LSAT. And whether we allow genetic engineering to give us human or other mammals of superior intelligence is an issue we have to confront, because whether it's the product of computer engineering or genetic engineering, transhuman levels of intelligence will dramatically affect us. One thing to keep in mind is that computers, up until now, have shown no interest in anything. That is to say, no volition, no ambition, no desire, no self protection or survival instinct. And so it's quite possible that there'll be phenomenal levels of intelligence with no prospect of affecting the world. A self-aware computer may not care whether you turn it off. In contrast, the products of genetic engineering, every animal life form we're aware of every animal at least has a survival instinct and a desire to do what it takes to survive, to not be unplugged, and often to affect the environment in order to achieve that. So I think that the question for the second half of this century is going to be new levels of engineered intelligence. And I want to thank Michael for raising that question. Let's take a question from the floor.
Okay, Congressman, we have a question from Ben from Westwood about cryptocurrency. Ben, you're on now.
Hey, Congressman, how are you?
I'm just fine.
Yeah, so I had a question. In light of the case this week that came out, or I guess last week, where the court in Ripple held that a token is not necessarily a security. It's really something that requires looking at every transaction on a transaction-by-transaction basis. Whether that will encourage you to work with some of your colleagues in Congress to find a way to legislate the industry in a way that doesn't necessarily drive jobs overseas and stifle innovation in the U.S., but can help bring some of those jobs back to the U.S.
I'm going to have to disagree. First, I don't think there are many jobs in cryptocurrency except for speculating in it. And I mean, there's a few. Sam Bankman-Fried employed a few hundred people. But you're talking about something that sucks up well over $1 trillion of investment capital. The number of jobs is very small. As to the case, that's the Securities and Exchange Commission versus Ripple. I've read the case. I've discussed the case with professors of securities law. That one trial court judge was just bonkers. That opinion says that XRP, which is something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, another one of these cryptocurrencies, is a security if you sell it in one method, and is not a security if you sell it in the same week with a different method. That's like saying something that an animal is a cow if you sell it at auction, but if you sell it just face-to-face, well, the same animal on the same day is not a cow. There is no one in securities law that could imagine that XRP, I mean, it is, something can change over time. A cow can become a cadaver, but that's probably a bad analogy there. But it's possible that cryptocurrency today is a speculative asset, and 10 years from now is much more a currency. But to say that it's a security on Monday and not a security on Tuesday has no support. There's no case that says that a share of a stock in Ford Motor Company is a security on Monday but isn't a security on Tuesday. And so I don't think that case is going to be important. What Sam Bankman-Fried, and for those who don't follow this, he was the guy who came to Congress and made billions of dollars and hung out in the Bahamas and was famous for bushy hair and wearing shorts to Congress, etc. his whole objective was to make sure that the crypto industry had a patina array of regulation, the lightest possible regulation, that's for people to feel secure without preventing him from doing what he was going to do, which of course was steal lots of money. And the way to do that was to keep the Securities and Exchange Commission, our toughest and best regulator, out of the crypto markets. And the crypto industry, the crypto billionaires are spending huge amounts of money both on lobbying and politics and PACs and contributions, and on legal, some of the most expensive law firms in the country. Their whole aim is to keep the SEC out. And what's peculiar here is that we probably won't pass any legislation. The crypto bros are powerful enough that we probably won't pass any legislation that hurts them. I'm trying to oppose legislation that helps them. So far, I've been successful. And I am the longest and loudest voice against cryptocurrency here in Congress. As long as new legislation isn't passed, then the level of regulation of cryptocurrency in 2023 will depend upon how courts interpret statutes written in the 1930s and a Supreme Court decision that came down in the 1940s. That is an absurd way to make public policy. Why, either it should or either there are good policy reasons to have it regulated by the SEC or it shouldn't be. It shouldn't depend upon analogizing it to cases from the 1940s. So I think that cryptocurrency is simply the people who promote it announced that their purpose was to partially displace the dollar as a reserve currency in the world and as a medium of international exchange. Every American family gets thousands of dollars of benefits every year because of the unique role of the U.S. dollar. And when crypto billionaires say, we want to take that and we can make billions for ourselves if we can push that down, and then say, oh, but we'll create 1,000 jobs spread out across the country or 2,000 jobs spread out across the country, and a convenient thing for people to speculate about. I don't think that's a fair trade. So if cryptocurrency fails, then people who speculate in it are going to lose a lot of money. And if cryptocurrency succeeds, then every American family is going to lose a lot of money because we're going to have higher interest rates, higher costs, because the U.S. dollar will not be playing the same role, a dominant role that it plays now. Let's take another written question. We have a question from this is from Suha Amir from Tarzana. And the question is, when are Democrats going to adopt an offensive strategy rather than always being on the defensive? I assure you, we're on the offensive. You look at the LGBTQ rights that we're pushing for now and compare it to just the Obama administration, where Obama had to be pulled by Biden into supporting marriage equality. You look at what we've done on I think we were quite successful in the debt ceiling bill. Only 71 Republicans voted against the debt ceiling bill, and they got very little out of that. But we passed the American Rescue Plan to provide $2 trillion of help to the American people during the waning days of COVID. We passed the infrastructure bill, $1 trillion bipartisan but chiefly Democratic bill to deal with transportation, electric vehicles, and water. We passed a CHIPS bill with $53 billion in funding to make sure that the semiconductor industry is substantially here in the United States. And biggest of all, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the biggest thing any country in the world has done to try to focus on global warming and to move away from fossil fuels. An important part of that was tax enforcement, which the Republicans tried to take away. You need tax enforcement to have the revenues for the Inflation Reduction Act, and they tried to chip away at that. But when you really get down to the fine points, they were unsuccessful in that effort. So I've never seen a party accomplish so much with so little. There was thinking that during last year and the year before, Democrats control Congress. There's a rule in the Senate where you need 60 votes, and we had 50 plus a tiebreaker. That's not control of the U.S. Senate. We had a relatively small majority in the House. We had no majority in the Senate. And even to say we had nominal control in the Senate, you'd have to say that Joe Manchin was a Democrat. And yes, he is a Democrat. And by West Virginia standards, he's the most progressive person elected in the last 10 years in West Virginia. But the people who say that you can't say Democrats are in control, Joe Manchin's not a real Democrat, because if Joe Manchin's not a real Democrat, Democrats never had control. So given the small majorities, we've accomplished a tremendous amount. I was here, of course, for the whole Obama administration. We got Obamacare then. But I think the number of big things that have been accomplished under Biden, it's hard to weigh, Inflation Reduction Act versus Obamacare. But I haven't seen in the history of this country so much being accomplished with such little majority. Obama had a significant majority his first 2 years. Hell, we had 60 votes in the Senate until Senator Kennedy died. Johnson had huge majorities for the Great Society. Roosevelt had huge majorities for the New Deal. If we're able to win a lot more seats, we'll get more done. Let's take another question from the floor.
Okay, Congressman, we have a call from our best named caller of the evening, Dawn, from I think somewhere in the Valley about the Supreme Court. Dawn, you are on now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Congressman. The last 6 weeks have been very disturbing to me. I'm 71 years old, and it just seems that the Supreme Court is open for bribery. All the gifts that they've been receiving, and basically not not advertising. I'm sure if you received 10% of, or 10%, 2% of any of those gifts, you'd have to
if I
public with them.
If I go to dinner and somebody picks up the tab and it's a $50 dinner, I report it legally.
Right.
Have to. A lot of my detractors think I might be for sale, but nobody thinks you can buy me for $49. Go ahead.
Well, I just feel that it's one of the biggest concerns and attacks on democracy is if the Supreme Court is open for sale. And I know that
it's not quid pro quo. It's not here's $100,000 in unmarked bills, vote this way on Tuesday. It's more subtle, but it's still corrupt. It's spend time with me and adopt my views, view me as a friend. Let's talk about the capital gains allowance. Let's talk about this tax bill or this tax concept or that tax concept. And we're friends. And we're friends because I'm taking you on a $250,000 week-long vacation. And that's why members of Congress and members of the executive branch are not allowed to take significant gifts, not just from people who wants you to do something on Tuesday, but from anybody. And to say that this or that generous person doesn't have a case before the Supreme Court, everybody cares about the big issues. No, not a lot of people make a lot. A lot of people are anti-abortion. None of them are anti-abortion because, they're going to make money by being anti-abortion, but they really care. And if you were to bring $100,000 in unmarked bills to a justice and say, please overturn Roe v. Wade, that's bad. And to say, it doesn't count because you're not going to make any money by overturning Roe v. Wade. Well, people care about things they don't make money on. And then there's this division of branches of government argument, which is just absurd. There are those who say we can't legislate rules of disclosure and gift prohibitions for the Supreme Court. We do it for the entire executive branch. The executive branch of government is just as co-equal and separate from the Congress as is the judicial branch. We've got 3 branches. We have very strict rules on the cabinet all the way down. We have a Hatch Act. We have lots of statutes that deal with federal employees in the executive branch. The judiciary has reasonable standards for lower federal judges, and the upper ones are just it's just people who want the meaningfulness and the joy of exercising governmental power, but they want to live an upper class lifestyle, and they're fighting very hard for that. And the problem is that in any other decade, Congress would just unite and pass some tough laws or require the Supreme Court to do so, and if they didn't, then we would. Now, everything is partisan. So it used to be, if somebody's corrupt, we want to stop that. Now, somebody's corrupt, they're a Republican, we got to defend them. They're a Democrat, and, we've got to stop corruption. Corruption includes not just money to vote tomorrow on a case where I'm a party. It involves spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy influence, friendship, philosophy, state of mind on matters that the donor cares about, whether the donor makes money on it or not. And that's why and now and then somebody brings a painting that they made, and I get an ethics report before I accept that. And if they're a professional artist, I don't accept it because that's the rule. So there's people there's somebody with a painting of me in their wall that they wanted to give me, and I couldn't take it. So I hope it adorns their wall well. So there are very strict rules on members of Congress. We're able to attract some pretty smart people and some not so smart people to serve in the United States Congress who are willing to live by those rules. We can find 9 very capable people who will serve in the judiciary and be subject to this. And to see Republicans rally to defend corruption is outrageous. And look, one of the more liberal justices is also being questioned, and the same rules ought to apply to her as apply to the conservative justices. Let's see. I guess we have time for one more question from the floor. I wish I had time to take another written question. I want to thank people for submitting written questions. I only dealt with 2 of them. Let's take one quick question from the floor, and if we go over time, our vendor charges us a whole lot more, so we will not do that. One more question.
Okay, Congressman, we have a question from Sue from Malibu. Sue, you are on right now.
Thank you. I was watching what happened today with the Congress and Robert Kennedy Jr., and the Democrats voted to censor him at a censorship meeting. I wonder how you feel about that. I am myself a Democrat and a Jew, but I felt that under the First Amendment he has the right to say what he says, and I was a bit appalled by that. Can you please respond to how you felt?
Under the First Amendment, you can say anything you want. Under the First Amendment, it was allowed, and the ACLU fought for this. You could have the Nazi Party march through Skokie, Illinois, which was a town which at the time had many people who had survived the Holocaust and had lived through it, and this was just 20 years, 30 years after that. The First Amendment allows this man to say anything he wants. It also allows me to say that he's a racist, an anti-Semite, and a conspiracy theorist. And when he says that the COVID virus was specially designed to not infect Ashkenazi Jews, he's fucking, excuse me, he's damn crazy. Censure is free speech too, and we should, I wasn't involved in anything formal and official today to censure this man, but I will take this opportunity here to say that his statements are not just crazy, but bigoted and harmful. So I agree with you on free speech. I don't know if you join me in feeling quite so harshly about the individual in question. I think it's now time to wrap up. I want people to stay on the line. You're going to be connected to our voicemail system. Please give me your email address, even if I already have it. There are all kinds of rules as to when I'm allowed to send you an email, and I want to make sure to invite you to our next telephone town hall. And I'm certainly allowed to do that if I get the email directly from you rather than from the list brokers. Second, you can leave a message to express your opinion that you may not have a chance to express during our telephone town hall. I'm not going to listen tonight. It's after 11 o'clock, but I will listen tomorrow. And I want to thank everybody for demonstrating that people in the Valley and on the West Side are concerned with their government and the world. I look forward to seeing you, particularly just about every summer Sunday, starting with the last Sunday of July. I will be in the park in Warner Center on Sunday afternoons for those free concerts, and we will have our constituent service booth. If you have a problem with a federal agency, come on by and talk to me or my staff about it. If you have some ideas as to what I ought to be doing in Washington, look forward to talking to you. That's just about every summer Sunday from the last one in July through each Sunday in August, Warner Center Park in the late afternoons. This is Congressman Brad Sherman. Thank you so much for participating.